Welcome back to another episode of the Real Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Jacob O'Connor. Real Conversations is a podcast for those dedicated to doing hard things and living a meaningful life. Today, I'm joined with Quinn Robertson. How you doing, Quinn?
I'm doing really well. I'm on the tail end of a 4.5 hour drive right now, but all in, I'm feeling really good right now. Feeling really good.
You're powering through, and I appreciate it.
Doing what I can for you.
You're either on the tail end of leaving or arriving. The last podcast, you were actually, the last thing you did before you drove back to Arkansas was the podcast.
Oh yeah, I completely forgot about that. Oh gosh, those are good memories. Those are really good memories.
Yeah, I went back and I listened to that episode and prepped for this one. And this is your third time coming on the podcast. And the first one was like, who is Quinn Robertson? Kind of like professionally. The second episode was, let's have some fun. We did the Buffalo Hot Wing Challenge.
Oh yeah.
This third episode is, I've really been in a mindset lately where like, I want to get to know a person at their core. And it's been like a very deep conversation. You and I actually had a phone call about this after the Nick Sandstone episode. And that's what I want to do with this episode. I mean, we can have fun and do whatever we usually do, but like, I actually want to start off on a very serious note and ask you, like, how would you conceptualize success?
Yeah, I was thinking about this whenever you asked me, and what I came up with, and I would say this is different from what I would have described it as maybe even a couple of years ago. To me now, success is waking up every morning, or most mornings, because none of us are perfect, but waking up every morning feeling fulfilled, doing something that betters yourself, your family, the world around you, the people that you care about, and that you've got kind of this, whatever this goal is, of better version of that, and you're slowly making your way towards that. And so stay-at-home mom, who is like, the people I care about are my kids. That being an amazing stay-at-home mom and, you know, pulling yourself or pushing yourself into that role, that's success. There's not a dollar figure tied to it. There's not a title tied to it. And so for me, I've started to get to, okay, the people that I really do care about, how do I wake up every morning and make their life just a little bit better? And if I can lay my head down at night saying I've done that, that to me is success in whatever that takes its form in on a daily basis.
So I heard a lot of things there, but I think what I was hearing was the pursuit of a meaningful goal. Because you said that it's something that you want to be able to work towards and make progress in, but it's also something that has like significance that you can, it's meaningful to you. It's something that is of value. It's not just chasing a dollar figure, like you're saying. It's not chasing a title, but it's something that has intrinsic value to you.
Yeah. And I think it's also a lot of people spend their whole lives trying to find what are the 8 hours during the day that become meaningful for me or give me purpose, give me passion. And a lot of folks struggle with that. I mean, you talk about different roles in different areas that, you know, people can just wake up and feel like I'm a cog in a machine, or I could go to a completely different job tomorrow, and this thing is going to be no different tomorrow than it was today. And so I think for me, being able to put my own little stamp on that to the point to where I actually walk away and something meaningfully changes, like there's a little bit of intrinsic value of I left my mark on something that I think I probably didn't care about until maybe moving back home. And now I've got this community around me that I deeply care about, that I want to leave like my lasting impression on. And so maybe that's sort of what's driving that for me.
Yeah, that's cool. And it's something that it sounds like every day then with your definition, you can be successful. It's like something you can do every day. Whereas like, I fall victim to this with the podcast, interviewing people, and I call them successful because they've made a lot of money, or they sold their company, or they're a professional athlete. And all of those things are super cool. And maybe that's how they define it themselves. But like it's kind of like a destination almost of like, I made a lot of money, period. But it's like every day, like, what are you doing that you actually care about now?
Yeah. And I was listening to your interview with Nick, and I think it was one of the things that he might have mentioned, and I'm probably paraphrasing it inaccurately, but a lot of what they do is, how do we make our employees' lives better? How do we make our customers' lives better? That's the thing that they really care about. I want to invest in my people and build great quality relationships with them. the money on the other end and the job to be done is just sort of like the tactical how we do it, but there's all of this wraparound that they deeply care about. And so that resonated with me as I was thinking about that.
That's cool. What do you think you would have answered 10 years ago? Hey guys, Jacob here. Real quick before we get back to the episode, I just want to take a quick second to say, if you guys are enjoying this episode, please make sure to share the link with a friend. You may have noticed I don't run any ads in the podcast. In fact, I don't make any money off the podcast. It's quite the contrary. Over the past 5 years, I've invested a lot of time, money, and effort into the growth of the show, trying to continually upgrade the equipment, bring on better guests, and just improve the overall quality of the podcast. So if you guys are enjoying this episode, or if you enjoyed previous episodes, please share the link with a friend. Saying it to 1 or 2 people makes a huge difference for me on the back end. As always, I appreciate your guys' support. Let's get back into the episode.
10 years ago, I would have been 21. I would have been recently graduated. Honestly, I probably would have been the, how am I up the corporate ladder, title, number of zeros behind a salary type of thing. Like that's probably what I would have said. And by no means am I saying that that's not a part of the equation now, because I mean, for everyone, a monetary salary or compensation is a part of the process with that. You can't fully kind of minimize it, but it's definitely a few orders lower than what I originally would have thought.
Yeah, I like that because it can get super, like things can just become like these fluffy words and sayings of like, I want to live a meaningful life, and it's just like all of these. You can't subtract money from that picture entirely, because I like to think about money as a tool. Like, what can I do with that money that I make? Like, money can be a beautiful byproduct of what you're doing that you enjoy and get meaning out of. And then you can do really cool things and impact people with that money. You can't just like pretend that money doesn't matter at all and that you don't need to pay your bills and you don't have responsibilities. And I think a lot of people have responsibilities that you can't, like, you got to wake up. You can't just not pay attention to those.
I think that's the way that you talked about that I actually really like. And I remember actually talking with my dad I think we were on a way to lunch. This was maybe 2-3 years ago. I don't remember when it was, but this exact same conversation came up. And I remember talking to him about money as a tool to make the people around me and their lives better.
Yeah.
And the other thing that I've learned from a few people around me as well is you hear the old adage, money doesn't buy happiness, and then there's the caveat at the very end, but it can remove some pain and anguish.
Yeah.
And so there's this really weird, like, you have to be able to, if you can get to a level of comfortable with paying your bills and being able to do some of the things on a weekend or a night or something like that, there's a little bit of sort of natural freedom that I think comes with that opens up the opportunity for you to go explore other things that are then going to maybe drive your passion. And so it has to be a part of the equation, even if it's not the equation.
Yeah. One of the ways that I've recently been thinking about success is like, I want to be able to do what I want to do, when I want to do it, with who I want to do it, where I want to do it. And that doesn't mean that I'm living on Paradise Island 24/7.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be able to create incredible opportunities for other people. Like, I feel so grateful to be able to live my life the way I do as a result of my parents, as a result of my friends, as a result of my wonderful podcast guests, as a result of my mentors, all the people that have supported me, invested time in me. And like, really, I do feel so much gratitude for that. And I want to be able to do really, really awesome things for other people, because I mean, that's what people have done for me. And I mean, of course, too, I also want to be able to go do really cool things like fly in a private jet, or, go do those core fun memory things that a lot of people are like, well, that's in the bucket list. Like, I want to actually do my bucket list.
Yeah.
That is a high priority for me.
Yeah. It's, I was reading an article maybe 2 or 3 months ago, and it was people were talking to folks that maybe had only a few days to live or something. And like, what do you regret on your deathbed type of thing? And always the answers were the things, experiences, and people that I didn't prioritize, not the mess ups that I had per se. It's not the things that I did do that I feel regretful for. It's the things that I didn't do that I was regretful for. And that I think that's given me a little bit more courage to take different risks, or, go step out of my normal day-to-day activities and find the random thing that, like, I may not remember it 2 decades from now, but like a week or 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be like, that was an interesting day a couple weeks ago. I think there's small little it's the jar full of like the big rocks and then the pebbles and then the the
Yeah.
sand and all of that. So
Yeah. Talking about push versus pull, like fear-based motivation, I'm not a huge fan of that, but there is value in that. And I saw this really cool concept of Jesse Ittler's a very successful entrepreneur. He sold Marquis Jet to a larger jet company. I don't remember what they are, but Warren Buffett owns them now. And very successful entrepreneur, part owner of the Atlanta Hawks. But his parents were like 70. And so he did this exercise and he was like, the average American lives to be 80 years old. He's like, I see my parents twice a year. He's like, most people think I've got 10 more years with my parents. That's awesome. I'm all set. And he goes, no, I have 2 times 10. I've got 20 more times with my parents. Like literally, physically, view that as you've got 20 more times to see your parents ever, and then they're gone forever. And money is a really unique tool that allows you to prioritize. Like how you spend your time, money can create that freedom for you to spend the time in the way that you find meaningful and impactful. And I think that actually putting numbers behind like how many more times do I get to see that person? It just based off averages. How many more times do I get to do things that will really matter to me? And how many more times do I get to do them while I'm at an age where I can do them physically, mentally, whatever? Like that, all of these things are not free. Like you think that watching TV for 8 hours on a lazy day, and I'm not trying to, again, sometimes you're going to do that, but doing that consistently, it's not like, oh, I'm young, I'll figure it out when I'm older. It's like, no, like the time to sacrifice the future for the present is right now, or sacrifice the present for the future is right now, so that you have the opportunity to do those things in the future.
Yeah. If you want even kind of a one layer deeper down the rabbit hole. So this was a kind of an identity crisis that I ran into when I was this was maybe my first or second year after I'd moved to Wichita from Northwest Arkansas after I graduated college. And I think that exact sort of measuring the time you spend with people sort of over the course of your life. And I was like, it kind of hit me in the gut a little bit. There's one layer deeper that I added on, and somehow I was going through a LinkedIn rabbit hole or something and found it. And it was time perception. Mm-hmm. So when you're 0 to 1 year is like 100% of your life. And then year 2, a year is 50%. And then you sort of like stack all of these things up to where, a year at age 10 is only 10% of your life. And so the older you get, the reason why everyone's like, oh, things are moving quicker these days, it's because you perceive them to move quicker because a year, an hour are all smaller relative to what you've historically created. And so you stack on, I've got 20 more times with my parents. And not only that, the time that I'm spending with them is going to feel like it goes like that. And that, I remember just like, I think I sat on the couch and just sort of wept for 20, 30 minutes thinking about that. And I almost, like a year or 2 into Wichita, I thought about moving back for that exact reason. And now, just in the last month, both of my brothers and my parents all live within like 7 minutes of where I live now. And so that's
beautiful.
It is such a meaningful, positive outcome in my life right now. And I'm so stoked for it.
Dude, that is so cool. I love thinking about stuff in that practical manner. Like I don't know if it's like how serious things have been with the restaurant. It's been like go, go, go to where I feel like I've cut out a lot of things, and it's like I have to be more intentional with my language or what I'm doing and what I'm saying to people, and just like trying to be more efficient. But it's like I've also felt like with talking to people, I don't have a lot of room for like just fluff talk, high level, shooting the breeze with them. It's like I want to get to know someone. Like if we're gonna have a meaningful relationship, like I want to get to the core. Like, who is this person? I want to be able to look at you and ask yourself, like, how are you doing? And you give me a meaningful answer, and I feel like I can share the same with you. And I don't know if that's a consequence of the restaurant or what it is, but that's just really been the mindset I'm in right now.
I'm curious, as you're going through all of that, do you feel like having to be more efficient and intentional with the words that you say and all of that, has it made you better at that because I now have more time to be able to do that? Or is it now that you're having to do that, it does remove sort of that natural fluff time that happens? So I'm curious how that's impacted you.
Well, I think it's because like throughout the course of a day, John and I interact with so many different vendors, and then we have employees now, and then we've got our managers, and we've got just so many people on a day-to-day where we're getting text, phone call, email. It's like all the time, all day, every day is just constant communication. And so it's like whenever I'm face to face with someone and it's like my free time or my leisure time or whatever it may be, it's like, I don't really want to shoot the breeze. Like all day, I've just been getting high level shot at all day. It's like, I want to get into something with you. Like I want to feel value in that conversation.
Yeah.
Or the contrary, I want to completely shut down and just lose my, just like,
I feel like everybody needs those. You need both of those every now and again. I remember you. I want to actually ask you a question, and it was what you said earlier prompted this, and I don't remember exactly what you said, but it was, I want to be more intentional. I want to be more meaningful with the relationships that I build and all of that, and it's the people around you, and you want to have a level of clarity around it. So I want to ask you a clarifying question, actually. I have started to learn who are the people in my life that I really care about, who are my people versus who are the people that are just in my life that they just kind of exist there. I'm curious for you, have you gotten to a better level of clarity? You're a couple years removed from college now and all of that. Do you feel like you've got a better level of clarity of like, who's my tribe, who's my crowd now? Or do you feel like you're still searching for that?
It's really tight knit. Like, honestly, because as a consequence of John and I doing like little small businesses in college and then doing the restaurant, it really got like cut down. I don't talk to many people, honestly. Like it's kind of you, Rob, John, and then my parents, my cousin Evan, and then there's a couple people that I'll exchange texts or calls with from back home. Like it is a very tight knit circle. And then Joe, who listens to the podcast. I got to shout out Joe here.
Shout out Joe. And I don't know you, but shout out Joe.
Yeah. So it's like, and I think that's something I could do better at. I think it makes sense to have a wider group of friends. Maybe I just haven't maybe done as great of a job as I could have making friends. And so by default, it's been a very tight knit circle, which isn't bad, but also I wouldn't mind it being a little bit bigger.
I think what I found about myself is it's almost like this bullseye with like concentric circles. You've got your squad, and then you've got, the folks that are around it that they kind of hop in and hop out, but like good quality relationships that exist there. And then you've kind of got different layers that are out there. I don't have like a list laying around somewhere. Maybe I should, I don't know. But I've started to sort of mentally figure out where people exist in those. And it's almost helped me prioritize, okay, how do I want to engage in this relationship? How much time and effort do I want to put in? If this person doesn't text me for 6 months, should I instigate it or should I just sort of let it fizzle out? And so there's a little bit of, I think that has almost helped me intentionally be more proactive about the relationships I do want to have. And then not that I don't want to have, but just that I care less about or don't need to have, maybe is the way I'd put it.
I think for me, I don't have that cutting out the weeding out of the friend group or people around me right now because it is so tight. And that, again, that's just kind of a consequence. I actually have kind of the opposite of super tight. And then the other group is I'm trying to build a relationship with you. So it's a growth phase.
Yeah. And you and I we were just talking before the podcast about professional relationships that sort of blend themselves or start to morph into personal relationships. And I historically have not done a great job of this. If you're my colleague, you're my colleague. If you're my supervisor, you're my supervisor. But my personal life and my professional life just very infrequently cross. And I have found that while not perfect, it removes back to that wanting to build relationships with people. I lose a little bit of something of, interacting with people. And so now I'm almost intentionally trying to find who are the people that I'm going to be spending 4-8 hours a day with or kind of interacting with, because that's a big part of your life.
Right.
How do you start to build those roots in with some of those? And that's something that I'm a few months into really starting to explore a little bit more. And so I'll next time I'm on the podcast, I'll let you know how that's going.
Yeah, I am curious. I don't know what I don't know. Like, I think I'm going to have a lot of those different phases. I'm going to have growth, and I'm going to need to weed people out. And I don't have it figured out by any means, but I am really enjoying this period of my life, I would say.
I'm glad to hear that. And as the recent 30s guy, you've got time to figure it out. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. We were also talking about before this with building relationships. We can't think of the word. I called Evan, and I don't think that he gave me the right term, but there's like this new kind of wave of building relationships with people, which I think accelerates the relationship much quicker. It used to be like, let's get a coffee or a drink. That still exists. But now there's also like this new wave of, you want to go work out? Do you want to go ice bath? You want to go hit a sauna? You want to go for a run?
Yeah.
Like it's this type 2 different type of social interaction. And that I think really builds your relationship quicker, especially just doing something difficult in common together. Oh, I love that. That's my new favorite form.
Yeah, it's you break down some of these walls of like two people sitting across a table, and like that's, you remove sort of the formality of that, and then you sort of intentionally get to put someone into this little droplet of your personal life as well. And so I think I love the way that you described that, of you kind of get a chance to break down those walls and start to build that personal side a little bit more. And for some people, they're like, no, I want to separate professional and personal.
Yeah.
And for them, that's what they want. And for me, I don't know. I'm of the opinion now that I'm starting to sort of cross those worlds a little bit more. And I will not be perfect at it by any stretch, but I'm kind of excited just to see what ends up coming my way from it.
Yeah. It is a hard thing because there's some people where you just kind of get the vibe and you're like, I don't think we're going to do an ice bath together. This is going to be strictly professional just by the vibe you're giving off. And there's other people, and it's like in the back of my head, it's the weirdest thing. I meet them, they've got this energy, and I'm like, I want to do an ice bath with you.
That's an interesting that is an interesting way to start to qualify people whenever you first run into them.
There's my buckets.
I love it. So I'm curious on, it's go out on a run, it's go on an ice bath or something. What would be, if you're thinking about what's the thing that I've not done yet that I'm like, okay, if I meet a new person, I want to go try something new together with them.
Ooh.
Do you have anything in mind for you that's just like, I've never done it, but maybe it's on my bucket list, or it's a thing that I would kind of break down a wall with someone with? You're not bringing someone on your 100-miler, I don't think. That's not going to happen.
Yeah. I honestly don't think so, because I've gotten to, like, the first time I meet someone is in the sauna, or let's go do an ice bath before a podcast.
Yeah.
I've gotten to do that.
That's cool.
And I love that.
And I think there's like this, I've got this bucket of 5 or 10 things that are just not the coffee, not the drink, not the lunch or the whatever, that you can start to just sort of poke and prod, and there's enough variety in them that you never get old with any of them, I think. And that's kind of a cool concept. I will never be the ice bath guy. It's still not me.
That's still your contact picture on my phone. Every time you call, yeah.
It makes me feel good.
We're not going to pop up the picture for the sake of Quinn, but it's a great picture.
As long as you don't put the audio clip in there, because the audio clip is probably the best part.
Yeah, we will not put the audio clip in there. Quinn, remind people of your background if they didn't listen to episode 1 or 2. Who is Quinn Robertson?
Yeah, so I grew up in Northwest Arkansas. I'm a triplet, so there's 2 more of me running around in the world. All of my family is most of my family is back in Northwest Arkansas. CPA, and so did accounting and all that type of stuff in college. Went out to Wichita for Koch Industries, did some tech, finance, digital transformation, strategy, buzzword of the day stuff for a little while, which was a lot of fun. And I met some wonderful people while I was there. Helped a couple of us get together with 2 guys in a garage and build up a little internal startup capability, and that was so much fun, and built some great relationships there. And then jumped out into nonprofit world for about 5 years. Helped build up an angel investment group to help get entrepreneurs access to capital and get folks that are in the local ecosystem that aren't invested in these amazing, wonderful, crazy entrepreneurs, and help them kind of bridge the gap between the 2 of those. And now run an angel investor group back in Northwest Arkansas. And so about a year ago, I took the leap back with my fiance, or girlfriend, then fiance, now wife. And so took the leap back to Northwest Arkansas, and have been building up an angel group since then, and starting to replant roots there.
Just a really great guy in general.
I've got so many flaws, but it's I look back a decade from now, and I'm really happy with the outcome that I've gotten to. And there's a ton of things that I wish I could have done that I still want to do, and I still have that long laundry list. But I'm to your comment of being grateful. I really am grateful for what I've got right now.
What a cool time to be alive, man. Like, you and I have known each other now for 3 about 3, maybe 2, 2.5. It's got to be at least 3.
At least 3. At least 3, yeah.
3,
yeah.
if not longer. 3 years now, and we've gotten to see that professional first relationship build into a friendship and like see different seasons with each other. I was actually thinking about this. You've seen me in like 4 different professional capacities now.
I have.
Between when I was in college with the startup and then working for Rob and then Accelerated Venture Partners and just a bunch of stuff.
Yep.
Like every time that we do a podcast, basically I've got a different thing going on.
Yeah. At some point we need to flip this around to where, the new Jacob, I get to interview the new Jacob because it's always a new guest. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, I think I'm sticking with this one for a while.
Love it. Love it.
But it's been really cool to see all of this kind of grow and develop and just like what a fun time to be alive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, you look out into the world and there's just there's goofiness that you kind of see and you kind of have to take mental stock of that. But you're right. It's I was talking to someone not too long ago actually about coming back to this is the greatest time in human history with like all the stuff that we have going on, the things we can do, the technologies and innovations that are allowing us to do. We're sitting in a restaurant right now with, podcast equipment that's like ratcheted to the countertop here and just a couple of guys getting a chance to talk a little bit about that stuff. And so I have to sort of mentally take stock of like these things that are allowing us to be able to do the things we want to do and live the way we want to live. You have to be able to just appreciate it. Yeah.
It's beautiful. And it's like, yes, this is work and I need to get an episode out every week and that stresses me out. And like, I need to do post-production. Yes, this is work, but also like, I get to do this. And there's so few times where you sit down with a friend or even someone you don't know, but like, you get to have that interaction without any other technology, no phone being out, you're not on a computer, you're not watching TV. It is you sitting down with someone and getting to actually know them. And I think this creates a really cool medium for that.
Yeah. I've even texted you a little bit about, maybe me thinking about, do I launch a podcast at some point? And
the answer is yes.
It's the reason for it. And it may just be me turning into once a month, I want to go on a run with someone or grab coffee with someone and have a specific format that I want to engage with them on. And maybe it's never recorded and never put out into the world, but being able to sit down and just converse with someone without any other distractions, I love that medium. And I feel like there's a lot of places in the world where that's missing.
Yeah.
It's even as simple as, my parents were always no phones at the dinner table type of thing as well. And so you find issues with that exist in the world. And so having very intentional time to just be able to converse like this, it sucks that you don't have that enough, but I love the medium of being able to like be very intentional about it.
It's beautiful because like I've got my phone's buzzing in my pocket during the day that I'm getting a phone call while I'm checking an email and while someone's asking me a question in person, all 3 at once. And that is a constant state for most people. And sure, you're efficient, you get a lot done, but like it really makes me appreciate this moment right here because it is just me and you. Like we're fully focused and engaged right here in this moment, and we're in the present. And I think that's so cool.
Yeah. And we were talking about this earlier, and so I don't know if I'm going to create a trend out in the world, but maybe this will be a thing. So
please do.
We were talking about my my bachelor party that we may get to do sometime later this year, and one of the things that I had thought about was, there's a specific phone with a specific phone number that's the one that gets sat on the table. All the guys that are there, the partners, the family members know that that's the phone if you really need somebody. But otherwise, everyone's phones are like stashed away in a car, and for 2.5, 3 days, you're actually off the grid, disconnected, and getting a chance to connect with people. And I'm sure there are flaws in that model, and so I imagine your listeners will probably tell me about that, and that'll be helpful for me to know. But I wonder if there are going to be more offsite meetings or weekend vacations that you can find ways to start to build that stuff in.
I told you beforehand I like the idea, but I'm not gonna lie, in the back of my head I'm like, what kind of trouble are we gonna get into?
Yeah, it's there's a little bit of accountability when you have to check in with your partner or check in with friends every now and again. Yeah. Are you still alive? Do you still have all of your fingers? That type of stuff. Yeah,
I'm picturing us like George of the Jungle. We've got like the mud on our face and we've lost our shirts and like we're just out running and like in the woods, and then you want to do it like the Ozarks. Like I picture us in our best most primal form.
Yeah, a kind of a Lord of the Flies type of scenario. Yeah. It's been so long since I've read that. I couldn't even give you any other reference, but I think that's a part of it.
I've never even read it.
Yeah. AP literature coming back at you right now.
Oh, my AP lit was Of Mice and Men.
Aha. Okay.
John Steinbeck.
Fair enough. Are you reading anything interesting right now?
I am always reading. I am currently reading, it's the second book by Ryan. Oh man, this is going to drive me. Patience is the Key.
Okay.
Perhaps. It's a 3-book series. Basically, it's by Ryan Holiday. Ryan Holiday is referred to as a modern day Stoic. He has studied a lot of Stoicism. I'm not typically a Stoic guy. It's like very woo-woo for me.
Okay.
But I decided to read something outside of my typical historical biography, like kind of business. Like I read a lot of Walter Isaacson biographies, listen to a lot of podcasts in that kind of realm. So I was like, let's give something a try like that. And I don't like the title, like the whole, maybe it's Stillness is Key or something like that.
Okay.
I'm very opposite. I am go, high energy, high intensity. So I really wanted to challenge myself and read something that maybe could challenge my thoughts. And I thought it might be good to integrate some of those things.
No, I think that's a good call. Are you in the sort of this stillness area? Do you feel like it's making you want to go faster because you read about this stillness and you're like, this isn't me, I want to do something else? Or do you feel like it actually is bringing you into having a little bit more of what that's trying to teach you? I'm curious how it's impacting you.
No, I think I really am leaving room to try and be more still. It is hard because there is a set to-do list and like a lot of stuff to get done with all of this going on. But that's why I like the ice bath so much, because similar to a podcast, but in a more extreme manner, it forces that stillness. Yeah. Like when you hit that ice and you have that bodily reaction, you are immediately brought to the present moment and focus on your breath to calm yourself down.
Yeah.
And that's what I love about the ice is no matter what's going on, no matter what I'm stressed about, when you get in that ice, you're there in that present moment in a much different manner than you are any other time.
That's cool. I know with my ice baths, I was wanting to feel that. I'm not there, but yeah, it's I like that you're being able to pull that out. I'm not a reader, so I'm getting into the audiobooks over the last 6 or 7 months or so.
You're not a reader, really?
I'm not. Kind of
surprised.
I spent a lot of time early in my career reading research reports and market reports and a lot of that, and so I wasn't as a kid, and so it's not like I was even doing that as when I was growing up, but especially when I got into more of my career, I took reading and put like this professional lens on it. And so just anytime I would pick something up, I'm like, this feels like work. And so just, I've gotten away from it for a little while. But audiobooks, one of the ones that I was reading, and I don't know why I haven't listened to it before, is Simon Sinek's Start With Why.
Oh yeah. Gold Circle.
Yeah. And so I just actually finished that a week ago. And so it was really interesting and fascinating to think about a lot of that. And I think that's maybe why I'm in this, what's kind of my purpose? How do I want to vote? Like I think it's, I'm in that like afterglow right now of really being thoughtful about a lot of that. And I hope it stays with me. You have some books that you read, you stay with them for 3 or 4 weeks, and then they just sort of die off and become a thing. And so I don't know. We'll see how this one impacts me, but I'm kind of in that little afterglow right now after reading it.
I like it, and I've been thinking about. Someone said this. It wasn't an original thought, but you don't read a book to get 100% retention out of it. And I think that like school really kind of sets you up for failure with that. And I really like to try and think I'm going to do that. But then I heard this idea of like, you take one meaningful thing out of every book you read and it's just going to compound. And I'm obsessed with this idea of compounding. And so like with Stillness is Key, it's like just take more intentional time, whether it's 30 seconds, whether just notice how fast you're going. Like just pay attention to it. You're not saying that you have to like stop doing it, but just the act of noticing will get you to kind of stop. And so I'm just trying to take like one thing out of everything I read. And if I can take one thing, I feel like that's kind of a win.
Yeah, that's a good call out. And let me think. If I had to pull one thing out of the Start With Why book, it was, and it brings me back a little bit to my Coke days as well, which is you always start off with what's the problem you're solving. And what I got from the book was it's very hard to go through anything else in a very transparent and believable way if you're why your starting point, why are you doing this, isn't incredibly clear.
Yeah.
And so I have sort of been in this, what is my why, as I'm going through my own personal career from a professional and from a personal perspective. And so it'll be a long time, I think, until I figure it out, but I'm starting to sort of chip away at maybe what am I, what aren't I right now? And I'm being a little bit more intentional about that right now, which is kind of fun.
I like that. I also want to call out, I think I am a bad person to be around when I'm reading, because
Really?
I get very excited. Like when I have a good podcast episode, like a guest, I can't stop talking about it. It's like I'm going to text every person I know and tell them, like, guys, this guest is awesome.
Yeah.
And I try and tell them their whole history. And I know people in the back of their mind are like, shut up, no one cares. And that's how I am with books. And that's how I am with like podcasts. And just like when I find something, and it's almost always in that business or high performing space, when I find a story or like a little tidbit, it's like, oh my God, like this is it. Like this is the big thing. Like this is, I don't know. I don't know what it is, but like, I just want to tell everyone about it.
I love that. And I'll ask you a question here, because I actually, as I was listening to some of your previous podcasts, and I think you did one that was sort of like a self-reflection one recently as well.
Yeah.
I'm curious, you have these, moments in or after you do a podcast that you just get insanely excited about and all of that. Have you found the through line across podcasting in general, or is there this thing across all of them that you're like, that's the thing that I'm searching for, that's the thing that like gets me really excited? It's not, I mean, it is the person, it is the story, it is the message, but like, have you found sort of the thing that just gets you across all of the ones that you're wanting to do?
It's a combination. So the reason I started podcasting was because I wanted to be successful. I didn't have a definition for it, but I wanted to figure that out.
Yeah.
And so whether that was going to be business, whether that was going to be athletics, whether that was going to be any sort of category, I needed more information. I didn't have enough data to figure out what that was going to mean. And so the first criteria for my thesis was the person needs to be successful in some sort of category that I find interesting, where that's made a lot of money, whether they're an Olympic athlete, whether they're a country music artist, like at the highest level of whatever category they could be in. That was interesting to me. That was the first criteria for the thesis. And then as I started doing podcasts, the Venture Mentality podcast, actually this is going to tie together very well. I'm glad you asked that question. Now that I'm thinking about it, I ended up stopping that podcast at the end because it was missing the second component. I found out a lot of people can make a lot of money a lot of ways.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm so tired of interviewing someone that, made $1 million off an Amazon business, like good for them, but like doesn't light me up.
Yeah.
And I think the second component to it for me now is they've got to be like a genuine, authentic, they come across real. It's not that they have every answer. It's not that they didn't struggle. It's not like they come across as a whole person. And I think that's still why I'm so lit up about the next Sandstone episode, is because incredibly successful, one of the top 5 real estate companies in the entire US.
Yeah.
They're doing very, very large deals. But then I meet this person. He just like meets me at my level. And every question I ask, I feel like he's giving it his all and giving me his full attention in that moment. And I know the guys that this guy's connected to. I know some of the deals that he's done. I know some of this background information. And yet he's like meeting me there. And I feel like I can see into the core of him, kind of like we talked about earlier, of like, let's cut through that top layer and get to the bottom.
Yeah.
And I think it's those two things.
There's a, it'll come across a little bit weird. And I might have referenced this in one of my first podcasts. When I was in college, there was a video that I had run across, which was called The Art of Seduction. And it was, and so, so I told you it'd go a little bit of a different way right now. What was interesting, and the general story was, it was Cleopatra, or Mark Antony and Cleopatra. And the roundabout of it was, whenever she was in his presence, she would make it to where whenever it was experiencing her, she was happy, she was excited, she was very intentional about like thinking of him. So that way, that's the only way he can perceive her, is like, you are sort of the light of my world right now. And so there's this almost like art of seduction, which to me boils down to, if you can make the people in your life and around you, even if it's 5 minutes with a barista, or, the 30 minutes that you get to chat with your mom or your dad or something like that, if in those moments you can make them feel like they are the center of your universe at that moment, like, that is such an amazing it's a skill, but it's this almost this belief cycle. And I think there's like do unto others, and it brings you fulfillment if you get a chance to do that. I don't know. And so I actually walked around for like a year and I was like, I'm going to seduce you. And they're like, what are you talking about? Probably brought it up in professional settings that just didn't make any sense whatsoever. But that was I took that as like a little bit of a challenge of how do I make someone feel like they are the center of the room at that exact moment?
And I think there's a big distinction between manipulation and then I think what you're talking about can be summed up as energy.
Yeah.
Like you just feel it about that person. And I love people that have great energy. And that is one of those weird things where I used to be like, that's so woohoo, like someone's energy. Like, what are you talking about, man? But now it's like, it is so apparent. Like we all know the people that are low energy and it's like they drain you when you're with them.
Yeah.
And then we know the people where it's like, how do I get around that guy more? I don't know how that guy operates at that level of energy, but when I'm with him, I feel like I can be the best version of myself.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's circling back to sort of the authenticity thing. It's very hard to fake that.
Yeah.
Very hard to fake that. You have to, what is your why? What wakes you up in the morning? What keeps you driving during the day? You kind of have to know fairly clearly what that is. Otherwise, you're going to wobble or you're just going to falter pretty significantly. And so I think what I look up to is those individuals have found their why at that point. And that's kind of an interesting little, I don't know. That's pulling back to the tidbit from my book. I found something good out of it and I used it in a real world. There we go.
Hell yeah.
There you go.
Does the name David Sinner ring a bell?
It sounds familiar, but I'm not pulling it now.
I feel like you're going to have to collide with him soon with you guys just being in similar industries. Founders Podcast, ring a bell or no?
Yes. Yes.
Have you ever listened?
I don't think so. I don't think so.
I think I've probably been in your ear about this. I'm a big fan of the Founders Podcast, which is hosted by David Sinner. David Sinner is like a former mechanical engineer, but just was like obsessed with entrepreneurship. And then eventually it got more broader into like high performance. But he reads literally all day long, multiple books on one person, and then records a podcast on that person. And they're almost all dead, but like it's people that he finds significant in history. And he literally talks about it. He's like, I'm obsessed. I'm absolutely obsessed with this person. I'm obsessed with podcasting. I'm obsessed. Like it is the most nerdy thing ever, but he's got the energy. He's got exactly what we're talking about.
Oh, wow.
And I love his podcast because you learn so much, but it's the way he delivers it too. Like he even has a speech impediment and you don't care. You're like, he shows up as himself authentically and has such great energy.
Oh, wow.
You're like, it gives it personality.
That's very cool. And even just the concept of that, of doing sort of this biography of someone in an oral format and not have them not being there or not be involved in all of that. That's a really interesting way to sort of like dig in and figure out what I can glean out of this. And that's a really cool concept. I love that.
Yeah. He's absolutely blown up. Podcast is ultra successful. He met with Charlie Munger right before he died.
Oh, wow.
He's met with like a handful of incredible people, and all he does, and he talks about this in the podcast, like people reach out for sponsorships. I'm like, why the hell would I do a sponsorship with you? I need to do a podcast. And so he only does stuff like he's any sort of ad or whatever, like he's vertically integrating to make himself more efficient and more capable while also making money for himself. It's so cool. I love it.
That's super cool. You
need to check it out.
I'm definitely going to have to check it out. And it tells you, how much I feel like I'm still fairly connected into the world, and yet there are parts of my life where I'm just still under a rock right now.
Aren't we all?
Yeah, that's very true. That's very true. What's keeping you up at night right now?
Oh God, Return to the Table series.
Yeah. You ask some hard questions of me. I get to ask hard questions of you.
Here I was hoping you'd seduce me.
There you go. Oh yeah. That'll come later. That's the end of the podcast.
Yeah,
that's how we wrap.
He was like, "This is my opening line." What keeps me up at night? There's a handful of things that keep me up at night. Number one, I think I'm likely consuming too much caffeine. I've told you this.
Mm.
I think I've had on the founders of Super Coffee. You're familiar with Super Coffee, right?
Yeah.
And they told me, Jake DeSico specifically told me at one point, he was consuming around 800 milligrams of caffeine a day.
Goodness. I listened to that one. He's cut it back down to like 400 or 500 now or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, oh, I'm totally fine compared to him. But I think I have a little bit lower of a tolerance than most people. But it's like at the same time, like I have never utilized caffeine until about like the last year or 18 months.
Okay.
And it's been such a productivity hack. I get so much more done. I have such great energy while I do it.
Yeah.
And so, anyways, I think residual caffeine, the half-life of it extends into my sleep, and so it's likely kept me up a little bit at night.
That's fair.
But you were probably asking more tactically, like, what thoughts are keeping me up at night?
Yeah.
What thoughts are keeping me up at night is we have a lot going on with the restaurant, and I'm very grateful for the opportunity, but we need to perform. We have people counting on us. We are paying salaries, and then we're also paying our hourly employees. And I'm so grateful for all of them being here and that we have the opportunity to do that. But it's also, we now have a very real responsibility with that.
Do I need to put the Spider-Man, with great powers from that I had to get thrown in there, I think.
May as well, man. I would also say there's a handful of things that I know I'm forgetting where you lay in bed at night and it's like, boom, that's it. I forgot to do X, Y, and Z today. Let's make sure I do that tomorrow. And then it's like, well, I should probably get up and write it down. And then I'm like, well, I should probably get up and just do it. And it's just this constant tussle. The amount of times I lay in bed at night and I'm like, well, let's just get up and go do it. And then I'm like, no, let's get sleep so we can get 8 hours tonight. Let's get 7 hours. And you're watching the clock. It's like, all right, let's get 6.5. And then you're like, all right, well, at this point I should get up. My sleep's compromised anyways. I argue with myself so much.
Wow.
So much. But I would say a lot of the restaurant, and then also similar to you, don't want to miss out on being with my family as much as possible. And so I make as many trips home as I can, but it's getting less and less with the restaurant. And yeah, I know my family's understanding of that, but I would definitely like to be around more.
Yeah. It's I felt that of myself whenever I was, even just 4 hours away. And sometimes you can sort of mentally get yourself to 4 o'clock on a Friday, I can easily drive home and just have a weekend with them. And I'll do it, every month, and it'll be easy and all of that. And then every couple of months turns into every quarter. And so I felt myself slipping on that type of stuff. And so I can empathize with that part a little bit for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then the 100-miler that I have coming up, it has been very hard to get the adequate miles. I'm proud of the effort that I'm making. I'm making a very strong effort to get in miles and do unconventional times. And, I'm happy with that. But I think in a grander picture, if I'm being solely objective about it, I'm not hitting the mileage that I would like to be. And so I think that's definitely I don't want to regret that on race day,
Yeah. Do you, this is your third attempt?
Third attempt at 100 miles. Yes.
Do you mentally feel different right now relative to your first? I mean, your first one, you have no idea what you were doing, so it's different. But do you feel like you're in a better mental state, even if you feel a little bit shakier on the physical side?
Yeah. So the first one, I was just scared. The second one, I was like, I'm David Goggins, let's go. And then the third one, this one right now, I feel like I kind of miss the pain. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah. Miss the pain cave.
Yeah, a little bit. And so I know what to expect. And so I've been much more lighthearted than the first two. But I'm also I feel like from the restaurant, I've built so much confidence of I'm willing to do the work. I'm going to show up. When things get hard, I'm not going to back out. I'm not going to quit. And I really feel like that's going to translate.
Cool.
I'm really hoping it does, at least.
That's awesome. I have a few friends of mine that have had kids in the last 3 or 4 months or so. And people tell you your body changes. You just naturally adapt when you're a parent. You're like, oh, I'm going on 2 hours of sleep tonight. That just becomes a thing, right? And so I really do think that even in different physical settings, your body just naturally starts to adapt to those scenarios. And so I'm hopeful that, this mental space that you're in translates to the physical side whenever race day comes, because it's early to mid-November, right?
Yes. Yeah. No, you nailed that. I feel pretty good mentally. The physical, I want to make sure I'm good to go there.
Yeah. And hopefully, spin it on the positive side. Hopefully you get a chance to not put yourself into an injury situation or something like that. Maybe that's the silver lining on the cloud there.
That's true. Yeah. What's keeping you up at night?
It's a wonderful question.
Well, you asked it first.
I know. I get to sort of toss the volleyball back over on the other side every now and again. Right now, I think I am, I'm a year into the gig running the Angel Group in Northwest Arkansas. I'm having a lot of fun doing it. Continue to do it for a while. I always like to think a couple years out. And so for me, it's, 2 or 3 years out. Okay, what do I want to do? And how do I start to make decisions today, be it relationships I want to build, activities I want to do, skills I want to build, whatever. How do I start to put myself into those situations now so that way, when what is it when opportunity meets luck is when opportunity meets dedication. I think I'm getting that wrong.
Preparation and opportunity.
Thank you. Whenever that comes my way in 18 months, 24 months, whatever that may be, then I'm ready for it. And so what's keeping me up at night is I'm not entirely certain what that is 2 or 3 years out, and that's a natural negative of myself. I struggle thinking 3 and 4 years and planning for all of that. And so what's keeping me up right now is, am I doing the things now on a day-to-day basis that are executing today, but then also planning for 5 years in the future as well? And so that mystery kind of gnaws at me a little bit. So that's probably one of the primary things that's gnawing at me right now.
That resonates very well with me. I will say too that I felt that very strongly as we wrapped up player card and then post college, because I was like, I think I know for a fact in my job interview for the only job I had after college, I was like, they're like, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I literally answered, I said, I hope I'm back in the entrepreneurship side of things. I was like, I hope I'm back like doing something business wise, and doing it with great people. And that was gnawing at me for 18 or 24 months. And it was like, I know what I want to do, but I don't know what I need to do right now.
Yeah.
And so that really drove me crazy. And I think that's why this period of my life has been so good, because it's like, even though it's an absurd amount of work and I didn't know much about it going into it or how it works or whatever, I was like, I know I wanted to end up here, even though I didn't know exactly what here was. I had the general parameters, and that's why this feels so good.
That's cool. I was, as you were talking about that and some of your kind of soul searching there, I also found, and I think the second thing that's keeping me up at night, actually what you said earlier resonated really well with me. Am I spending enough time with my family? So now I've lived the last decade where I was either a 4-hour drive or a couple flights from my family. And now I'm a year in and my family is less than 10 minutes away, like every single one of them. And so, if I go 2 weeks and don't see one of my brothers, is that weird? Is that wrong? Is that good?
Yeah.
I don't know. And so I'm like mentally going through that right now of what should normal be? What do they or I want normal to be on some of that right now? And so I'm trying to be very intentional about not wasting this opportunity, because you never know, a couple of years from now, someone could get an amazing job offer and go half a country away or something like that. And so you never know with these types of things. And so I'm trying to be very intentional about, spending, because I have people within a small nexus now, being intentional about being able to spend time with them. And then what's right, what's wrong, and all of that is definitely another thing that sort of keeps me up as well.
You can just feel when it's right, though.
Yeah.
Like you saying that, like being that close to your family and then me doing this, like you can just feel when you're in alignment.
Yeah. Yeah. And I will say as well, I moved back to Northwest Arkansas with a girlfriend, and she took an insane leap of faith to be able to do that.
Shout out Celia.
And so,
and Rafi.
Yeah. And now, we've been married 9 months now, and I feel very, I don't know how to describe it, but I feel very validated and happy and strong in that position. So that, that was definitely weighing on my mind 12 months ago, and it's not weighing on my mind now, which is really nice. Because it's a much, some of those puzzle pieces are really starting to fall in there. And so that's something that I'm really glad that I get to speak fondly of and happy about, where maybe I was mildly anxious of it maybe 12 or 18 months ago. So I don't know.
Yeah. Good for you, man. That's awesome.
Appreciate that.
Going back to your comment on like, what do I need to be doing right now to prepare myself for when luck does strike? There's two things. The first one being Steve Jobs has the great quote of, you can't connect the dots looking forward, you can only connect them looking backwards. And then I was listening to a podcast this week on Robert Greene, who's the author of 48 Laws for Power. Very successful book, very successful entrepreneur. And he graduated college and he's like, I want to write. Like, that's what I want to do with my life. So I want to write.
Hmm.
And he was like, I don't know what I want to write, but I know I want to write. And he was like, crap, I got to make money. So this goes back to the very beginning, which is like, you have responsibility. You need to make money after you graduate. And so he took a job in journalism. He's like, I enjoy writing, didn't enjoy doing this. He's like, but I think I'm building a skill that hopefully is valuable in the future. And so what he learned with that journalism job is newspaper. He learned how to write like an attention grabber, write a good hook, get someone in the first couple sentences to want to read the rest of whatever you've written. And then he took some other job, and I think it was in Hollywood, and it was much longer format writing. And then eventually all of those skills combined of the short format attention grabber and learning how to keep that retention with the long format. And then it all culminated when an opportunity came up as someone reached out to him. They were like, I think you got something. There's just something about you. I want to sponsor you, like subsidize you. I'll pay for your living expenses while you go write this book. And he took that opportunity and it changed his entire life. And it just goes back to like, you may know in the back of your mind that you want to do something. You may not know exactly what it is or when that's going to happen, but like, don't just sit on this opportunity and think that there's nothing in front of you right now. Like, you have the opportunity to be building the skills wherever it is that you think you want to end up in general. And like, the way you do anything is the way you do everything. Like, all of this matters.
Yeah. Yeah. I had someone describe it to me because I don't know if a lot of people struggle with that of like, what do you want to be in 5 years? And you like have this very fuzzy answer.
I think a lot of people do.
I think so too. And what someone described to me was, you always have these Legos that are sitting in front of you. And so you can sort of put the Lego pieces together and you have no idea what they're going to create in 5 years, but your tactical job today is use the Legos and put the Legos together, because at some point the Legos will be valuable for you. And it resonated with me on being able to like have this weird conflict of me in a 5-year stance, but have something very tactical and practical and doable that I get to do, and that I feel like I'm moving forward. I may not, but at least I feel like I'm moving forward.
Yeah, I like that analogy. Yeah. Okay, I've got two more questions for you.
Sure.
How do you take care of yourself? And I think you can think about that as like recharging or physically. I mean, there's a lot of different ways. But how would you say you take care of yourself?
Yeah, one of them, and this is one of the things that my wife and I kind of gel on, which is both of us we can be extroverts when we want to and when we need to. It's like that extroverted introvert, but we very much are. We kind of need our own time. And my wife, she loves the mountains. She loves getting out and sort of being in nature, and that's kind of her safe zone, her sanctuary, her recharge zone. One of the ways that we sort of do that for us is being comfortable with like the veg nights of, we've had both ridiculously long days and we probably have some stuff to do. It's, do the dishes, chores, all that type of stuff. And some of it may be viewed as like procrastination, which it might be, but also it's this giving yourself this mental time just to be at the end of a day and say, these things don't need to be done immediately. Let me have my recharge time, because you can start to burn out pretty darn quick. And both of us have gone through points in our personal lives and our careers where we've just gotten pretty burnt out. And so I think we're both starting to be fairly intentional about that, of finding the recharge time in the little moments. And we get a chance to, to work from home. And so I'll have a string of back-to-back meetings for 4 hours or something, and I get off early for a 20-minute meeting that should have been 30, and I'll be very intentional about that 10 minutes and just not exist for a short little while. And so that's a little bit of the mental side that I think we start to do. I'm starting to get back into running a little bit. I've got some like SI joint pain that I got to get through. And so my physical therapist has just last week said that I can start to run again. And so I did a 1.5 miles like a week ago. And then about four days ago, I think I did a 5K. And so I'm starting to get back into that. I think I fell off sort of the fitness wagon around COVID. And I mentally got to this state of, well, I think the funny contrary with all of this is everybody is saying, oh, you need to be kind of away from everybody. The best thing you could probably do was go outside and run by yourself. And yet mentally, I flipped it to the exact opposite of like, that's the thing I'm not going to do. And so I don't know why that just didn't gel with me. And so I kind of fell off the bandwagon, and I've had little spurts of trying to get back into it. You and John have, courageously gotten me into running a marathon on no training, and
beautiful.
I'm recognizing that I'm 30 years old and can't do that anymore. So I think I'm trying to sort of baby step my way back into that and get back into kind of the fitness area there. So those are a couple of the ways that I'm starting to get back to, both with myself and my wife, really start to think about how to take care of ourselves a little bit more.
Let's go, man.
Yeah.
How do you find that balance with you called it kind of the veg out, or give yourself a little bit of grace to, I'm not going to go 110 today. I'm actually going to let myself recharge tonight, because you can't do that every night. Like, how do you find that balance?
I don't, is the honest answer. There are weeks where I do it really well, and there are weeks that I don't do it well. Yeah. And I think if I look back over the last 3 or 4 months and I'm like, you know what? I don't measure it on a daily basis, but I measure it on a quarterly basis. If I feel like I've done that right, I think giving myself a broader time scope lets me have a little bit of that flexibility to come in and out of doing that. So I think that's kind of me feeling like I'm doing it right and course correcting on a much broader scale, I think. Yeah. But yeah, I won't get it right.
Yeah. No, I like that answer. Okay. Quinn, the king of LinkedIn. Where can people find you online if they want to connect, reach out, learn more?
I haven't changed my profile picture since the last time we did the podcast. So once again,
that picture was originally from like years ago.
I don't remember. Yeah, it was a tad bit ago. But Google Quinn Robertson. If you see the guy with like, the goofy kind of one eye mildly closed, but like in like this black vest or black sweater looking thing, that's me. If you see posts that are a little bit funny and occasionally cringy about startup stuff, you're on the right profile. So connect with me, follow me, all that type of good stuff. Yeah.
Dude, I love your LinkedIn posts.
I'm not on Facebook. I'm not on Twitter. I'm not on Instagram. And so we were talking about this earlier. I'm naturally not overly formal. I'm kind of laid back and don't take myself too seriously. And so the only social platform that I have a way to do that on is LinkedIn. And so that part of me comes out on that side. And I'm excited that I'm feeling more comfortable being that way. And I know there's a lot of folks out there may be some folks listening to this podcast that are like, LinkedIn is supposed to be very professional and very all of that. And you are totally right. My professional is just a little bit different than other folks, I guess.
You're semi-professional on LinkedIn. I don't want to see the Twitter version of Quinn. I think you could become unhinged very quickly.
Probably very true. There's a good thing I deleted that off my phone a little while ago. Yeah.
Sweet, man. All right. You can find me on Instagram at Jacob O'Connor. The podcast is at Real Period Conversations. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please make sure to share it with a friend. Quinn, looking back at your 31 years of existence, what advice would you offer to your 23-year-old self?
To my 23-year-old self, things are going to work out. You have to be intentional about giving yourself a space to go and find your future, but things are going to naturally find their way. I was 2 years out of college and I'm like, I'm not married, and I haven't figured out what I want to do with my life, and I'm 4 hours away from my family. Like, there's all of these things that I think I was so insanely stressed about. Of these are going to last forever. Am I ever going to be able to find them and resolve them and all of that? And there's a timeline out there. Whether some people say that there's someone that's helping guide that, and some people say it's just naturally occurring with all of that. And whatever you may be thinking there, I think there's something out there that is allowing you to say the world is going to work itself out. You don't need to be stressing out all over that. Enjoy the ride to get there, because it's not the destination. It's the journey to get there. And if you enjoy the journey, then the destination will sort itself out long term.
Thanks for coming on, Quinn.
Appreciate it.